My name is John Pizzolato, and I'm running for the town of Highland supervisor position.
Now, can you just clarify though, why are you running for reelection?
Um, because we took on a lot of different projects. We've secured over, I believe, $700,000 in grant funds so far, and we've seen one project completely into fruition. But I really want to actualize everything that we started for the community. And also, there's no apparent leader that's kind of surfaced to really run the town. I do have an opponent, but I don't think that they're prepared to bring the town into the future and to protect the town in ways that it needs to be protected. And so, I want to stick around for as long as I feel comfortable passing the baton on to somebody that'll do it within good spirit and for all the right reasons.
Yeah, and can you kind of explain the position of town supervisor and how it interacts with the Highland Council and also the Sullivan County Board?
Sure. So, the role of town supervisor is effectively like the chief operating officer or the financial officer for the town. So, it's my responsibility to balance the budget, to be the deciding tiebreaker vote, and to generate agendas for the town board. But for all intents and purposes, I'm just another board member. My board is very proactive, especially the group that I came on with. Tom Bigliarino and Laura Burrell and I have all really, really kind of um, uh, initiated projects of our own and wanted to see things through. Tom is a building professional, so he's been really wonderful at advising on our infrastructure and things like that. Laura has put wonderful systems in place because that's her background, but she also has a construction background. Sonia Kidney comes from the county, and so she has been wonderful to identify things that we need to do to interface properly with the county, everything from our vital statistics like marriage, death, birth certificates to, DEC licenses, all those things. She's very good at spotting any flaws and has a very wonderful eye. She's actually pivoting and stepping down from her board seat to run for clerk because it's a position we definitely need filled in our office. But for me, I see the role of supervisor is like chief protector of the community in all ways. Like I'm constantly interfacing with all of the legislature, to get programs started, to get funding over our way, and to just let them know what's going on the ground. I have a really great relationship with legislator Matt McPhillips as well as Kat Scott and Nadia Reich. And we've been able to work together to enact a lot of wonderful things for the town of Highland and hopefully ID some programs that could spread throughout the county, like our Highland Health Initiative.
And could you kind of go into what your policies and priorities for this next term would be? I know you were talking about the grant funding, but what else are you looking forward to doing as town supervisor?
So we initiated our 10-year comprehensive plan survey. So over the course of 2024 and 2025, we held, I believe, about six swatting sessions. Strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, and we identified some key issues, everything from development to emergency services, to medical needs of the community. And we basically identified everybody's kind of collective goals, strengths, and differences and things where we all see kind of eye to eye. And then we devised a comprehensive plan survey and put it out to the community. And so now in this next term, I'd really like to actualize the results and make some changes to the code that reflect our common ideals. It really is a democratic process. We collect all the data and then try to reflect what the majority of people want. And that's something I'm really focused on as well. We also have Proposition 2 on the ballot to reinstate the constabulary. The previous town board put an end to our very popular constabulary program, and so we have it on the ballot. So if the voters choose to support the reestablishment, that'll be a sort of heavy lift to get that going, but we've done a lot of wonderful footwork and have a lot of wonderful partners already that could see us bring our constabulary into fruition without a lot of extra cost to the taxpayers. I think that will actually come in under what we're spending right now on our contract with our sheriff and really boost community spirits to have that hometown policing back in effect. So in addition to reestablishing the constabulary, getting our comprehensive plan survey enacted and make those changes to the codes. We also have a $200,000 grant for our courthouse in building that the constabulary used to be in that we're renovating. And we're also seeing a project through. We purchased the building next door to town hall with the opportunity to demolish it. It's called a Removing Unsafe Structures grant, and that was from Sullivan County Legislature. And so we'll be developing that property, and we have a state and federal grant out on that project as well. So we, not only are we going to provide parking, but we could potentially develop it into something that would be a benefit to the community as well.
I was also curious that you mentioned town clerk, and there's been some, I've been reading some things about the transparency around the town clerk, most notably this recent audit that happened of Sue Hoffman. You at the most recent meeting made a point that you would make certain changes for to add like a second signature for all town banks. Is there anything in your platform, anything you would like to build on with this transparency, or anything you'd like people to know about how you as town supervisor would continue to bring a sense of financial transparency?
Sure. So yeah, we've been really focused on bringing that transparency to the people. That was kind of something that propelled me into running for town board in the first place. That seemed like everything was decided before people got there. There was no dissension on the board. There was no conversation. There was limited involvement or engagement in the compute and in the community. And so for better or worse, we're standing room only at most of our meetings. We really have been grilled by the public, namely a lot of people that were part of the previous administration or friends and family members of the previous administration. But that makes us all stronger, right? To be asked questions and to be made to justify yourself on a minute to minute basis with every decision you do. And that is part of the responsibility of the town supervisor. And that was a little bit of a learning curve, to be completely honest. I didn't expect people to come in hot, yelling at meetings on day one, but that's what we dealt with. And I feel like it's made us better and a stronger, more cohesive board because of it. In regards to the clerk, the current clerk is a really nice person. We used to work together. She worked for my small business in town. I used to patronize her small business in town. There's no animosity from a social level with the clerk. It's just more the job that she did or didn't do. When you're a new elected official, it you go through a set of training and you read all the manuals and you know what you're supposed to do and what's right and what's wrong and the calendar in which things are supposed to happen and the monthly reports, the deposits. None of those things were being done, and we gave her several opportunities to rise to the challenge and to fix the work. And then there was threats from the public to take legal action. There was minutes that are still missing from 2021. There was actually minutes that were approved by the previous town board that never existed in general. So we have to clean up those things because the record of events is all we really have as a town. That's what makes us a town. We got together at this time and we made these decisions, and this is how it affected the community. That's the takeaway. Like that's our history. And without respect to that, I don't know how we can really move on. In terms of the financial transparency, the bank is across the street and deposits were not being made for up to 5 months at a time. And that was a hard pill to swallow to begin our tenure like that. But I feel like we've worked through it and we've done everything within the town board's power to try to correct those actions. And that's where the censure came from. It officially says we don't agree with the way you're doing your job, and we can't be held legally responsible for the decisions you're making. And making deposits, recording things. Additionally, the state took away the clerk's vital statistics ability as well as the DEC permitting ability for failure to renew her license after a very long, over a 1 year alert period. And so those duties have been reassigned to the deputy clerk, who has been incredible and has really stepped up. So, I think that training, I think that taking this report and developing new systems, like, yes, I can now see the clerk's accounts that didn't have any oversight before. We also moved the the depository for all the code fees to the code clerk, and then another board member oversees those financials. So, the financial audit of the clerk's work was a heavy lift. Thankfully we got a lot of grants for our buildings, so we had the extra funds in our buildings budget to take and transfer over to accommodate this very important investigation. And I feel like we can't waste this opportunity, right? Like, the person who had the position before our current clerk had it for over 20 years when we made the transition between analog to digital. And so I don't think everything was done, you know, with a modern eye or with technology taken into account. And I look forward to just training staff and providing them with the tools that they need to keep things on track and to make sure that they're meeting all the requirements set before the state and before the town board.
You mentioned your opponent a little earlier, Mary Ellen Carney. And I'm aware that you've had some heated discussions with her and her daughter at the most recent or at the reorganizational event earlier this year. How do you plan to address her as an opponent? And if you are reelected, how do you plan to work with people you disagree with?
Well, I mean, I've never, anybody that knows me knows that I keep a lot of people that I disagree with very tight around me. Like I love debate. I love intelligent debate. Um, you know, Mary Ellen's daughter has been mostly absent from the 2024 and 2025 meetings. I mean, her attendance record has been abysmal, and it wasn't even better before we were aboard. She had been appointed in, I believe, 2018 or 2019, was on maternity leave, and then was very dicey about her attendance. And she's not really been there for the community at large. Boots on the ground. I think there were a couple storms where she stepped up, but other than that, we haven't seen a lot of this person, doing nice things for the town. And the same can be said for the family at large. Mary Ellen, we never saw her in town. Most people don't know her name aside from people she maybe vacationed with. She's originally from Staten Island and came up here in the summers. And she just kind of appeared out of nowhere to start trouble basically at town board meetings. There was never an earnest questioning of things. It was accusations from day one. It was attacks from day one. They started a really uh, pretty rotten social media page and befriended people that goes completely against Board of Election standards. You're supposed to identify yourself as a candidate and put out your views. And they block and delete people. They don't allow conversations with anybody that shows any sort of dissension. So I think we see what her leadership would look like, and she's being advised by the former county attorney, Mike McGuire, who's got his own stained reputation that we don't even need to dig into, and Rob Doherty, who was voted out by a landslide in the 2023 election for legislature. So these are her cronies. These are the people around her. And we're seeing that darkness drift over to the town of Highland. And it really has no place here. And I think that their leadership is authoritative, and it doesn't reflect the ideals of our community. And I don't think that we've heard one single thing that my opponent would do for the town. It's just how I'm doing everything wrong. So if you take me out of the equation, she really has nothing to say. There's no platform. I really think she'll be puppeted by the likes of Rob Doherty and Mike McGuire. And that's a really sad prospect. I mean, voters have shunned them from, community involvement for quite some time now after seeing them, when they were in office and in their close up. And I don't think they have a place here, especially because there's no opportunity to vote for them. You're only voting for them via my opponent.
Is there anything else like have our listeners know before you go to the polls?
Sure. I'm here for everybody. Even if you don't agree with me, even if you don't vote for me or didn't vote for me in the past, I'd really appreciate your vote this time. I think our record speaks for itself. And I think that we are looking beyond partisan politics. We have this wonderful slate of candidates. Frank Monteleone, who's a Republican, but also running on Lifting Neighbors. Chris Dickey, who's helping with the Highland Health Initiative. is also a Democrat, and he's on the Lifting Neighbors line as well. Same thing with Sonia Kidney for town clerk. She's a Democrat, but also on Lifting Neighbors line. And Joe Barnes, who's our very popular highway superintendent, who's running unopposed. So he's on all three lines, conservative, Democrat, and Lifting Neighbors. But I think that, we've taken a really rational and hard look at like where the town needs to be. And we've looked at the skills of the Lifting Neighbors slate of candidates as to ones that can really push the town forward, but still maintain our character and the things that we all love about the town. And so I think that as a voter, for me, if I looked at a slate like that, I would know that there's no power struggle or, special interest that's going on. It's really a wide cross section of our community that's there to, dedicate themselves and their expertise to making the town of Highland a great place to be and live. And I don't see that. I mean, if you look at Mary Ellen's candidacy, she's standing alone there with a bunch of people in the shadows behind her. There's nobody that wants to run with her or really wants to do anything with her. And she's been so adversarial with the town board that, I would beg voters to really look at what she stands for and what the platform is if you take me outside of the equation. But I'm dedicated to this position. I want to see all our projects through, and my door's always open. My phone number's everywhere. I'm here for everybody, and I will fight for you, and I will continue to make this town a success. And I think that we've really proven ourselves in the last 2 years, and I look forward to doing it for another 2 years.
Well, John, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you for your time. Thanks for having me.